Does math belong in music? Fuck no! Hell yes!
Everything's alright, buddy. I love you very much.
I've always thought music was intuitive math, but I've been proven wrong time and time again. So today, I'd like to try to see if I can actually be right for a change. Walking the potato. Does math belong in music? How about math rock? Well, my contention is that in so-called math rock, the math that takes place is about as complex as counting. So that's one solid no. Piece of evidence two, how about 12-tone music? Serialism. Judging by how popular that is, I'd say that's a solid no. Piece of evidence number three, Giannis Xenakis, John Cage. I don't see anybody humming any Giannis Xenakis these days. No. Number four, is there anything such as fractals in music? Yeah, there are, but again, nobody's ever heard of them because the audible representation of a fractal is boring as shit. So it's not looking good for math and music. I want to stress that I say these things not lightly. I'm someone who's spent quite a bit of time trying to think about mathematical concepts in music. So maybe while there isn't a bunch of expressly mathematical concepts or language that apply to music, there might be something that's more like a pseudo-mathematical language. Permutations are a good example. That's a satisfied customer. What is permutation? What permutation is? Is what permutation? Is permutation what? Permutation is what? Permutation. What is? Okay, bam! Idea number one, banging them out. Since we're in a modular setting, maybe we could have the permutations work out on their own little brain. You know, I'm listening to that in my head and it still sounds pretty fucking boring to me. Birds up there, they're just gonna shit all over me. Love you, Los Angeles. Back to permutations. Bam! Well, now it's starting to rain, so that's wonderful. I really do love Los Angeles, though. Okay, so I think I have a basic idea. We'll have three states, A, B, and C. I'll make a list of permutations, the 6 ways that those elements can be ordered. I mean, I can at least hear that in my head, but it's really not very interesting yet, so... I also think what I'm going to do today is make it so it doesn't loop. It's just going to be triggered, whatever it's going to do, and then spit out a little melody and then stop, because all the looping is making me lose my mind. Thank you. Okay, here's what we have so far. Should change every time, except for that time. Clock-in starts over here, goes through various clock dividers. These are the voltage sources, which go through these, which are the permutation lists. Now, both of these lanes come out and feed into this 6-input mixer. If I hit this, and I turn this up, you should hear a little bit of difference. So how those are kind of similar each time, but they're a little bit different, that is the nature of the permutation. Boring as shit right now. So if I hit this a few more times. Has a phrase shape. Not too interesting. Just added a little bit of modulation to make it more musical. I don't think it worked though. I have to say, the answer to the question of does math belong in music is a resounding no. So yeah, I'm Scott. This has been failure. So as I was editing all that together last night, just found myself thinking, boy, this is boring as hell. If I find my editorial eye drawn to video of my dog taking a dump over me trying to invent a new type of sequencing, things are getting pretty grim around the noise castle. I could switch my channel to an ASMR channel and just focus on my dogs taking dumps. I just feel that that would be more aesthetically honest. Perfect. Right, so that was a dead end that cost me a week. The problem that I have with that permutation machine is that, to my ear, it doesn't beat random. My ear doesn't give a shit that those permutations are happening. So, permutations. Failure. Listen to this though. That's a couple of little thoughts that I had that use that kind of arch rhythm. It's starting slow, speeding up, and then slowing down again. I made a little circuit which actually tells us if the pulses are speeding up or slowing down. Over here is a clock to CV module. What that does is it senses how fast the pulses are being delivered to the gate, and then it converts it into a control voltage. And then going through this analog shift register and out to the comparator, it can actually tell if it's speeding up or slowing down. When it's speeding up, it'll go to this right one, and when it's slowing down, it'll go to the left one. So I'll trigger it over here. Now what's happening when it comes out of this comparator is that it chooses which of these two quantizers are going into the switch, and therefore which pitch set is being produced. And you can see this one's a C major, this one's a G7. Maybe I can do some modulations and what are called secondary dominants. Okay, cleaned it up in an effort to, try to make my channel a little bit more user-friendly. The clocking is up here. The clocking triggers the arch triggers, which is that arch shape that I was talking about. The speed knower, it knows if that rate is speeding up or slowing down. The temp trigger is just, I have that in place of a MIDI input just so I can test the circuit. The quantizer is obvious, just a quantizer, and you can see it chooses between two channels, and then that's the out, and then that's a MIDI display. That's a cheery little tune, but who gives a shit? So maybe this is actually kind of therapy. Let my brain float around in the jar. One thing I could do is take that phrase shape machine out of there and just make it so it's live. If I had it so I could just modulate the key by playing each key, you know how a normal keyboard works? God forbid I'd use anything in the normal fucking way that it was designed to be used. And then I could have the modulation wheel like speed up or slow it down so it changes between the tonic and the dominant. Merry Christmas from Satan. So I'm happy to report that we might have achieved our first fuck yes when it comes to the question of does math belong in music. We're tracking with that speed knower circuit the acceleration of the number of notes that occur. That's a derivative of the speed, and that is calculus. What's funny about that concept of the tracking the rate of change for a clock, it's the change in speed. And I tried to think of why couldn't it just be the speed itself? And that's because to have a negative of speed, you'd have to go backwards in time, right? So I'm thinking of this vertical song composition where it composes the music forward in time and then goes backwards in time and places notes backwards. Is there language to reflect the idea of accelerating through time? That is really odd, because I don't know it. No, I don't think there is. I think it's just the rate is at the pace at which something occurs in time, and the derivative literally means the rate of change. So that means that the statement, the derivative of the rate of change, is the rate of change of the rate of change. Grand. But the rate of change of the rate of change is actually the second derivative. Here's where I'd like to segue into the idea of geosynchronous black holes being a feasible manner of time travel. Feds are after me. But then, there's a whole big mess of clocking, triggering shit up here that's making that whole bunch of very raucous clock triggers. But also, there's a MIDI in, so I'm triggering some of the parameters of this patch via the pitch and modulation. Pitch bend is controlling the CV on this gate length. And that has something to do with the amount of the pitches that are coming through, as opposed to this thing that I was calling the speed knower section, which was basically taking the arch triggers and telling you if the pulses were speeding up or slowing down. I replaced that with the pitch bend, so it tells you whether the pitch bend is going up or down. And that in turn chooses which one of these quantizers. And what that translates into is when I go like this, it goes between the tonic and the dominant. So I think I'm gonna actually call that one success. Score 1 for math. Thank you for joining me on this trip through the confusing and infuriating world of modular sequencing. I will attempt to answer more questions as to whether math belongs in music. This is the first in a billion-part series. And like and subscribe and comment below. Thanks. As usual, scroll to the beginning of the vlog if you want a high-fidelity version of what the patch sounds like. Thanks.